Hello and welcome back to the Jersey Barrier. Ryan here, where we will go through the Commonwealth of Virginia today along the I-95 corridor in a special preview to this coming Tuesday's episode. And welcome to Richmond, where we will start here on I-95 headed northbound through downtown Richmond. Pretty bad here that there's no pull-through at the 64 East junction, but I do like those controls on 64, as that is exactly where it's going, Norfolk and Virginia Beach. Now we are concurrent with 64 West here in Richmond, and we're approaching where we will split off from 64. And here we do get our first control in Richmond with the split at 64 West. I believe this is an old picture and now the 64 sign just says Charlottesville, but good all around here. Should be Washington the whole way, in case that wasn't clear. Next major junction we have is with 295, which is kind of a semicircle beltway north of Richmond that acts as an alt to the east as well. This is the last 95 spur until the DC suburbs. But why don't we have a pull through here? Like, there's even space for it on... come on. This is a look at Street View in Ashland. Lots of traffic, which is exactly the point we're trying to get across here. There's a lot of traffic on 95 through Virginia, and very little that VDOT has done to address this problem. Well, finally a mileage sign here. If only we could see the mileage. Apparently VDOT snowplows knocked it over. But it does look like Fredericksburg and Washington when I zoomed in on it. So those are the two cities that should be up there. And now 95 looks like this. So a big change, and traffic not an issue at all here. 3-lane highway through what is now pretty rural Virginia. As seen from 95, way in the distance, we are getting signed for Fredericksburg at the minor junctions. No overheads or mileage signs that I could find in here, but Washington should be bottom line, primary, the whole shebang. Fredericksburg is a good secondary, but not a good primary, because there's just, the population is not there in Fredericksburg like it is in DC. Once again, nothing to speak of with regard to Washington, which, I mean, is kind of crazy. But yeah, moving on. Finally, Washington is up there. We kind of got this dual lane thing going on here with 2 lanes on the right coming from downtown Fredericksburg. You'll be able to switch when the express lanes start in just a bit, but right now they are separate. And the express lane entrance here, not outrageous prices, but they are dynamic pricing, so could be higher at peak times. Not sure when this photo was taken. Google doesn't tell you what time it was taken. But the express lanes run all the way from here north of Fredericksburg to Fairfax County, so a long ways. Here in Stafford, we see the interchangeable direction express lanes where it will switch based on demand. Definitely not a huge fan of these, as it makes it very hard to sign the express lanes, and with all the time and money they've spent on the express lanes, they haven't really addressed the signage in the non-express lanes either. So closest thing I've seen to a mileage sign since that one that was plowed over, but it's on the express lanes. So come on, you spend so much money on building these lanes and you can't have any signage. Like, come on, VDOT. Once again, no pull through, no mileage sign to speak of, and we're getting pretty close now. So, wow, New York City sound from Lorton, Virginia. That might be the furthest. Of course, that signage will not survive the wrath of PennDOT and the like, but we will cover that stretch of 95 later. It is saying use 395 for Washington, which is absolutely correct. 95 turns into the east segment of the Beltway, which goes completely around DC. So if you actually want to get to DC, you gotta use 395 north. Would you look at that? Bumper to bumper traffic on the northbound and smooth sailing on the southbound and express lanes. Who would have thought? Maybe you should prioritize safety and efficiency for making a quick buck. Virginia already draws enough money off of its terrible personal property tax on cars. Like, there has to be a better way to go about this, which is exactly what we will talk about in Tuesday's video, so be on the lookout for that. Pretty good controls here at the Beltway in Springfield. Weird that 495 East and 495 North are both there. I think that's just the practice in DC, Virginia, DC, and Maryland, but it's very strange. We are now concurrent with 495 East. Not really sure why this even is 495. It should just become 95. Concurrency with a spur it doesn't feel right. And here we get a drawbridge warning. It feels like absolutely awful design to have a drawbridge on an interstate, but maybe that's just me. And we see the exit numbers drop in from 177 to 2 as we are coming up on Maryland. And here we are on the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. We are signed for Washington once again as we are entering Maryland. And this is with the drawbridge that they spoke of. Apparently it only opens like 200 or so times a year, but still, like they couldn't build a better bridge for the interstate. Turning around and heading south as we have reached the Maryland line, we see more of the same. Good signage here at the 95 split should absolutely be Richmond. Can VDOT please just sign more on 95? Like, when they actually do it is pretty good. Unlike 81 on the other hand. See Winchester. Alright, so yeah, more of the same for VDOT. No pull-throughs whatsoever. It should be Richmond all the way like it was DC all the way. But they're going to sign everything else pretty well. What is this? A mileage sign. Oh, finally. Fredericksburg and Richmond, as it should be. If there were some northbound that I missed, or southbound, I apologize, but I looked hard for them, and they're not where they typically were, and I kind of gave up after I found this one on the southbound. So, if there are more, I hope they say this. If not, fix. Still nothing southbound either as we get further south towards Quantico. Good signage again here on Route 3, but VDOT, this is I-95. Put it up there. Like they're scared of it or something. Alright, moving all the way down to the Richmond suburbs, since there's really nothing signage-wise to critique, but the absence of it is arguably worse than anything you could have put up. Arguably. Great sign here, triple control on 64 East, 295 South. Love it. Richmond and Charlottesville for 95 and 64. Nothing to complain about here. This is a great sign. Very interesting that Richmond is dropped in favor of 64's primary, Norfolk, with the Petersburg secondary. We're not quite in Richmond yet. I could see arguments for either way, but definitely a little odd. Okay, so well, now it does make sense for Petersburg to be up on the previous, since it's now the control out of downtown Richmond. I see where they were going with that. I'd still like to see Richmond up there in the previous, not in this one obviously, because we are in Richmond, but it does lend itself well to making this sign. Alright, what did VDOT sign? Pretty much nothing. On paper this looks good, but not when you only sign it 2 or 3 times over 100 plus miles. For the most part, I do agree with what VDOT did. It should be DC all the way, with Fredericksburg secondary. New York from Virginia is quite presumptuous, and it's so dense in this area that Baltimore just makes more sense. But I do like the thought from VDOT there. Southbound, Richmond all the way, Fredericksburg as a secondary once again. From Richmond, I believe it should switch to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, with Petersburg and Norfolk secondary. Petersburg is just so close. It doesn't feel right that it's the primary of I-95. So, well, that's all I got in the road review of 95 through Virginia. And we will talk about all the problems with the actual road design in the next video coming this Tuesday. I'll see you then.